So I'm going to set a variable in PHP. PHP is a server-side language, so I need to know one or two tricks and tips of using something called a web server. So first of all, let's start a new file. I think we created one called myfirst.php, so let's just start a new file and set the blank PHP tags. So it starts with an angle bracket, then a question mark, and the language PHP, and the closing tag is a question mark followed by an angle bracket. So if I save that as myfirst.php, it turns red telling me that I've got a language. Now if I was to run that, and I did this in the design video, but I made a mistake. Take a look at the erratum on the page to highlight the mistake. So I'm going to sort of run that one again and walk you through it. So as this is a server-side script, meaning I have to have a web server running, and this is my web server, Apache. We don't need to see this or have this going. Once you start your computer up, if you have set it up as a web server, this should automatically run. If not, you'll have to come into this control panel and physically start your servers. But mine are working. So what that means is that when I start a new page, if I type localhost, which is my own machine, I get the web server working, and if I see this page, in other words, what it's done is actually changed from localhost. I only type localhost, it's put dashboard in for me, and it's run straight to my dashboard page. If you see this, your web server is working. If you don't see anything, your web server isn't working at all. But I have saved my first in a folder. Now this is on my local drive in the examp folder, htdocs, which means web pages. I've got a folder or a website called programs, and that is where I've stored my first.php. But I don't need to type all of this in. All I need to know is in which folder inside htdocs I have stored my programs. So if I change this to be programs, it should give me a listing of all my programs. Let's just take that out first. It should give me a listing of all my programs. There we go, and this is the one we want, my first.php, but I am not going to click on it. I'm going to type it in my browser window, my first.php. When I press enter, it will show me a blank page. Now that blank page is good. It means that the program is working. If I'd got an error, I'm expecting to see error messages in here, but as I didn't make an error, there are none. So I'm going to set that variable as we saw in the flowchart. So if I go here and my pseudocode, I'm going to set x to be 3. And the way to do that in PHP is all variable names start with a dollar symbol, then the identifier x, then I set it to the value that I want, 3. Notice the colouring, meaning it's working, and then I can save that. All I need to do is refresh my page on localhost. I shouldn't see anything at all, but I shouldn't see any errors, and that is working. Now, just as an aside, if I want to see that value, I'm going to write another line of code. I don't want you to take any notice of it at the moment. If I just echo the variable, it should write the variable to the page, just to show you that something is actually happening. there we go, we've got the 3. But ignore that for the time being, we'll come to this statement very, very shortly. So that is how to set up a variable in PHP.